of you for joining with us today. And we welcome you to our third training session, of the Kickstart scheme organized by Arjun Global. So we are running these series of training sessions, which will help you guys, develop your skills and, strengthen and enhance your skills as well, which will really be beneficial in your workplace and so just, kickstarting your career. So we would encourage you to, participate in the sessions and ask any type of questions, whatever questions you have. You can just unmute yourself and ask questions. And if you don't want to even unmute yourself, you can type your questions in the chat box and, we'll take it up from there. So that's all. Yeah. So before we move on to the session, let's start by giving an introduction about our company, about Arjun Global. And Amol will do that today for us. I'll quickly start sharing my screen. Just give me 1 second. Let me know once you can see my screen.
Yep.
Over to you, Amol.
Okay, thanks, Manisha. So Arjun Global provides bespoke recruitment and freelance hiring services for the top 3% of highly skilled talent. We deliver on-demand workforce of consultants, developers, graphic designers, financial market analysts, and other professional services to startups and leading companies. We have extensive experience in providing financial and technology resources for a variety of industries. Next slide. So, we focused on building a talent pool of highly educated, highly experienced people who have worked with a wide variety of leading companies, including Google, Amazon, Expedia, Uber, Deliveroo, Coca-Cola, and many more. And Arjun Global endeavors to source market-leading talents for companies of all sizes, from small startups to a Fortune 500 companies. We have achieved quite a lot of success placing Indian talent from multinational companies into roles in the UK and the US. At our core, we are on-demand resourcing networking company with highly talented individuals and teams across the globe with, approximately 15 plus freelance consultants across a wide range of specializations, including graphic design, social media, and marketing experts. We talk about web designers, top content writers, brand managers, software developers, and many more in financial and technology space. So, we are also a registered gateway provider to Kickstart scheme, and we have completed more than 300 plus applications of, on behalf of UK businesses over the last 8 months to give a chance to employment to young and talented people who are, currently on universal credit and are unemployed. So these series of sessions will give the candidates an edge in areas such as problem solving, communication, cognitive flexibility to gain better self-knowledge, and emotional intelligence in the workspace. So we have taken this initiative to boost the confidence of young Kickstarters by offering these in-depth sessions led by knowledgeable business leaders and industry experts. So our guest speaker for today is Ash Sunassee, who is the founder and the CEO of Wealthfinity and WellCube, which is a full-service business improvement agency with corporate wellness focus. And today he'll teach us the mantra of business networking, relationships, covering aspects of the journey of building a relationship. What should your CV include? How to connect with people, businesses, and networking, and work with a brand. The interviews, the meetings, how the meeting happens with the employer. So we have an exciting giveaway for you guys today, as Ash is happy to give one-on-one consulting to one of you, which will be decided at the end of the session. So this is an amazing opportunity to learn from an amazing leader like him. So let me brief introduction about Ash. Ash is entrepreneur with an insatiable curiosity, with a background in corporate sales and leadership. His career expands across variety of industries, including strategy, consulting, well-being, tech. He has worked with startups and global brands and mentored to celebrities and business owners and charities as well. So he has a particular set of skills in uncovering potentials with the system he works with, increasing productivity, synergy, and revenue, making him one of the most sought after business and strategy leaders in the industry. So Ash has lived in 6 different countries, speaks 5 languages, and once woke up during surgery. So without any further delay, over to you, Ash. We are looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
That was really interesting. You woke up during surgery. Oh
Woke
my
up during
God.
surgery. Yes. I grew up in Botswana, and back in the days, there was so I woke up during surgery. I was having a cyst removed when I was 7 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's my story. So ever since then, I've not been to the doctors.
God bless.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for that lovely intro. I appreciate it, and lovely to see all of you guys here as well. This is fairly informal. I know I've been given strict guidelines to stick to the script, but I just wanted to say that I'm completely open. I'd love for interaction, and you guys can drop questions into the comments. We'll be responding to those at the end of the presentation, which I promise I'll keep brief, and I'll try and not make it boring. Okay. So I'm going to share screen if that's okay, and we're going to go through here. Good Lord, I should have looked at this, and here we go. All right, so I'm just going to do that now. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Amazing, cool. All right, so the first thing is who we are. And, we've got a brief introduction about what Wellfinity does. The reason why I wanted to kind of touch up on it again is because we are a global company. And what I mean by that is we provide services and we connect different people with whatever particular set of skills that they have with the people that need it the most. So I like to look at us as connectors. And that's kind of what who we are. Now we have a global team. I think we've got Chipper here from South Africa. We've got a team, team members in the States, in Australia, in Thailand, and the UK. So we are very global, and we love connecting people. What we do is enriching people's lives through wellness, with a wellness focus. Now, we have a holistic approach to things. So we believe that everything works in synergy. Different systems working together efficiently is what makes a system or a company or a process successful. So that's what we do. Why do we do it? Because we'd like to make the world a better place. As cheesy as that sounds, that's why we get into it. And the why is what drives us. It's what gets us out of bed. And if you look at the pictures around, these are all the different things we've tried. We've been in operation for the last 3 years. We've worked with tens of thousands of people already. And and that's what we do, why we do it. Now, what we're going to talk about today is the journey of building relationships, what to include in your CV, and connecting with people, businesses and networking. There's working with brands, interviews and meeting potential employers. And then we'll get to the questions and thoughts at the end. So the way it works is this. So before you sit down and do your CV and figure out what jobs you're going to apply for, I'd like to say, figure out what job industry it is that you're looking to go into. Now, there are many transferable skills that you have, but a lot of people end up doing something just because they have to. They don't realize that there are other ways, there are other industries that they can actually use their skills in. So the first thing I'd recommend doing is sitting down with a pen and paper, understanding and writing what your values are, what's important to you. And then you figure out the industries or the niches that you want to focus on. Then what you do is have different CVs. What I mean by this is each CV is going to be tailored to each employer that you look to get to. Now, if you look at LinkedIn as an example, and I'm hoping you guys are on LinkedIn as well, what LinkedIn does is it uses the skills that you have added to your profile. And the jobs that are advertised out there, they have those skills and they see which ones you're matched to. And that is one of the first bits of, matching that they use as a point of reference. Now, if you applied for a job, there are a lot of softwares that they use now to make sure that the key wordings or the key skills that you've added on your CV matches up to their what they're looking for. Now, relatability, proficiency, efficiency, and all of that. The moment you tick more boxes, your job will get, your CV will get flagged, and I mean, not flagged, but will be identified rather. And then it gives you a better opportunity, a better chance. Now, once you've done your CV and you've created all these different CV models, version 1, version 2, whatever, you then do the outreach. Now, what I call outreach is you now start making lists of those companies that you want to approach, whether you tap into them online, whether you attend job fairs. It's about you getting your CVs into their hands. And that will be the next step. So the outreach side of it. Now, once your CV is in the company's hands, they've probably had several hundreds, maybe tens or several hundreds or maybe thousands of applicants. Now, they are going to go through the sorting of those CVs. Now, what would make yours stand out? If we think back on the second point, the more matches you get, the better it is. The way your CV looks, your name, what makes it memorable, does it stand out? Those are the bits that are going to get you into those sections. I wonder if there are any Harry Potter fans in here today. That's the reason why I use these sorting applicants. There's the hats, the Gryffindor and the Slytherins. Anyway, so that's that there. Now, once you've gotten selected or your CV has been selected, the next step is quite obvious. They'll actually give you a call, send you an email, and you have the interview. When you get to the interview phase, what happens next is you selling yourself. So it's where you now start matchmaking and start saying, yeah, I do this, I do that. I'm able to do this. I love this about your business. This is why I want to come in and work with your brand. And you have to find that rapport building between you and the interviewer, because the more ticks you get, the better rapport you build, the better the chance of you getting hired. So that's the next step. Now, one thing that ties all of this together is something that we often overlook. We often forget that we're humans at the end of the day, so the big brand, the big company that's out there, it's actually a person, an HR person who's doing the recruitment, and they're a human as well. Now, humans have feelings, they have emotions, and have something called neurotransmitters that get secreted from the brain and the gut. So those are the bits that we want to tap into, right? So that's the idea around it. Now, if you have any idea on relationship building or going on a date, it's very similar. I know they're completely different, but they are very similar. Let's talk about this. Job industry. You come in your mind and you try and decide what your ideal partner is. What are the skills that they have? What are the features they have? What are the habits or the lifestyle that they live? Once you've done that, you adapt your presentation. You're going to meet somebody. How you dress. Are you going to go with makeup on or no makeup? Am I going to wear earrings or not? I adapt my presentation, my profile to that person. Once I've figured out how I'm going to dress and how I'm going to look, I then start picking out locations that I want to go to. That's the outreach. So outreach, am I going to go to a club? Am I going to go to the library? Wherever it is that you're doing. Now, sorting applicants is what happens on the other side. It's not necessarily what you are, you make that decision, but it takes two. Okay, you do all the preparation up until the outreach phase, but the moment it comes to the sorting of applicants, it's dependent on that person, because whether they pick you or not. But one thing that I find has been often overlooked is that when it comes to sorting applicants, we will go for a job interview and we will go somewhere and we will change ourselves to morph into what that job wants us to be, because they're the ones who are interviewing us. So we fit into a mold of what we want, what we think the company wants us to be like. Now, what we probably should do, what I encourage, is to interview them as much as they're interviewing you. Maybe not necessarily during the first interview, because that will probably kick you out, but you do your research and your due diligence beforehand. Interview that company, try and figure out if this is the values, the morals and everything else that you're about. And if those align, then you proceed to go into that. So now, when it comes to that synergy, you build that rapport. They interview you, you interview them, and at the end of that interview, you can say, you know what, I like you as a person, but I don't think I'm going to work with this company. I don't see myself getting there. Make that decision then. And this will prevent people from getting into the wrong jobs, the wrong careers, purely because of the fact that this is what somebody has told them to do. I'm guilty of that. I studied electronic engineering many years ago in South Africa. I came to the UK and I studied marketing and business administration. That was my second degree. And then what I ended up doing now is I'm running several companies, but I'm running a company in wellness, corporate wellness, which is completely different. Now, why am I doing this? This is my passion. I ended up doing those jobs just because I had to do the jobs. But now I'm actually pursuing my dreams. But I wish somebody had told me that I could have done this many years ago. Go and find something that I want to do and go into that niche and work those steps. Yeah, it might be hard at the beginning, but it doesn't have to be, is what I'm saying. It's much harder going down a path for so many years and then switching careers. Anyway, getting to the interviews and rapport part. Now, here is relationship building. The key essential thing here is actually for chemicals. The 4 chemicals are the feel-good chemicals. I'm going to get to that part afterwards. But these chemicals are neurotransmitters. We want to get into the psychology of selling. Okay, I don't want to sound like selling, but the psychology of selling yourself to this interviewer and them selling to you. So it's a vice versa thing. So we're going to touch up on those as well. And then when it comes to being hired, what are the next steps? What are the etiquette, etc. Now, what should you put on your CV? These are very basic, and I apologize if everybody already knows this. But I think one thing that I find when I'm going through CVs as well is contact information. Create a PDF, and in your PDF that you put together, just make sure that you have your contact number and your email address, because a lot of times and make it clickable, as simple as that sounds. Make it into a hyperlink. If you're linking in your LinkedIn address, just get somebody to click on it so that it will take them straight to that, because it makes it really easy. A personal statement is something else that you can just write a very brief intro about yourself. This gives them an insight into who you are, the language that you use, the tone, whether there's a bit of humor in there, I don't know, but your values are where it comes across and it comes through when you talk about your personal statement. The next thing is work experience. I know that's a big one because a lot of us do not have work experience. Maybe this is the first job that you're going for, but it's important to put it in there. Professionals, some of them C-level execs who have no degrees. Oh, come on. I mean, everybody knows about Apple as well. He dropped out of university. So education is important, right, to put on there, but it's not a deciding factor. So don't worry so much about it, okay? Especially in the modern age. Now, what I say is The CV is going to get you the interview, and the interview, you are the one that's going to get you the job. So the CV gets you the interview, just gets you that chance to meet with that person, and then the job is where you come through. Now, the last one is the hobbies. There's a reason why we ask about hobbies, and that is more to find out, are you human? Are you a bit of a robot? You know, do you work in a team? Do you not work in a team? What do you prefer? You know, things like that. Do you prefer, you know, if they were working with a big team, are they able to put you into this? How quickly can you adapt? You know, stuff like that. So these are the kind of reasons behind these. And yeah, this is the screen there. Sorry, I should have loaded this on before I did that. Cool. So the next one is, oh, okay, there we go. The CV gets you noticed. The content in your CV gets you the interview, and the impression that you create gets you the job. So that's what I tend to say. I don't know if I don't think I'm quoting anybody, but this is something that I kind of, you know, summarize it in. So your CV is so important for you to have key things that stand out, that it's not just a bog standard CV. Get creative. The impression that you leave at the interview is what gets you the job. All right. I picked out this random CV online. So just to kind of show you guys, you know, the bits that we're looking at. And I just wanted to highlight these. Jane Franklin, name, bold, good one, because that sticks out. It stands out what your name is. Underneath there's a little title, great, because it summarizes what you're about, you know. The address, you don't necessarily have to put your full address, although we do advise to have your postcode at least. The purpose of this, it helps with geotagging locations. If an employer has multiple sites, they know how long you're going to take to get to work. Whether if you're in a different area and then you put willing to relocate, that's a good thing then. Phone number, put the phone number in. Don't write the phone number like this, like she's done, because with the space and the dashes, if an employer was to press call on this screen, it wouldn't go through. I know this is something really silly, but it works. Similar to email, you can create the link. If you're creating a PDF, just pop the link in there so that when they press it, they can send you an email straight away. And then on the very top right, where it comes to Twitter and your LinkedIn profiles, it's good to have a link. Make sure that the hyperlink's working. Now, one thing you need to remember is that with the modern age, people will Google you. An employer will Google your name. They're going to figure out what you've done, you know, what you haven't done. So think about what you have in social media. Yeah, so because that is important, because this, what you have in your private life, I know you might think they have no right to do that, but the reality is, the way I say it is that people are like airplanes, okay? So you have your business life in your right wing, your personal life in your left wing, and you fly. If any of them is out of whack, if your personal life is very hard rock party kind of person, that's fine. But if ever that goes out of whack, the business life is also going to go down. So, and that's why we always look at a balance between the two. So if you're looking to go into an entertainment industry, cool, having party and drinks is fine. If you're looking to go into the creative industry, having party and drinks might also be fine because it's all good. But if you're looking to go into an academia or academic background or job, then that's a slightly different story, right? Also, another thing is we had several people apply for certain roles in our job, in our industry. And what they had on their social media would have tarnished the reputation of our company because they were completely conflicting interest of what they said they believed in and what we said we believed in. So those were the two things. So social media is going to be a huge one for you to kind of look out for. So just be careful about what handles you put out, or even if you have a Twitter account or an Instagram account, create one that's just for the bosses and include that link in here. I didn't tell you that. Cool. Anyway, coming over here, top tips, going to state the obvious. This is an example of, what people have written, okay? They've written on their CV, I've operated a till machine, I've stocked fridges, and then they've also written a paragraph. I was an intern at a supermarket. My roles and responsibilities included stacking the shelves, counting stock, and I helped with unloading the shelves with expired products. I worked here for 6 weeks as part of an internship. So that's how I've seen CVs, and that's how people tend to do it. What I would recommend, again, this is my personal recommendation, is I would say focus on experience that you've gained from that job. Instead of saying I've operated a till machine, an example here, just say I further enhanced or developed my counting skills, as well as engaged with customer service because I was doing with face-to-face people. It sounds better. That's how you sell yourself at this stage. Because whether we like it or not, we are all salespeople. We all do sales at some stage in our lives. What is selling? Selling is trying to get somebody to see your perspective and buy what you're trying to say. So even if I've had some people tell me that, but that's candy coating it. I'm like, yeah, fine. If that's what gets you the job, then yeah. But the reason why we like to see that as employers is because if you're working with us and somebody asks you a question and says, oh, why are you wiping down this machine? And I'm like, oh, because my boss told me to. That's what you would probably say. But if you show the creativity in saying, well, the reason why we're wiping it down is because we want to, create a great, safe environment for everybody that comes in and uses the machine. It sounds better. And you're starting from a CV. And when you translate it into your daily life and you carry on, it gets you thinking on your feet. And we know that from a customer service perspective, you would be a better candidate. So we would pick that out. The other part of it was, and an example was, I learned the importance of brand and made small changes to impact these learnings. That just sounds, okay, fine. It sounds fancy, right? But here's the thing, stacking shelves is something that I had to do. I actually started my career as, many people don't know this, but when I first came to the UK, I actually volunteered in a care home. So I was going to work 5 days a week and I was coming home 2 nights. And then I would go back to work. And then I was like, I want to get into the wellness industry, the health and wellness industry. And there was a job in a gym. My mom was like, oh, cool, you got a job in a gym. I was like, yeah, I got a job in a gym. It sounds cool, right? I was a bloody cleaner. I was a cleaner in the gym. I didn't tell her that. I was wearing the logo and everything else. I was like, cool. But what I ended up learning from that experience, I did that for 2 weeks, and then I walked up to reception, did sales, and The rest of it was kind of like a journey. But what I remember is when I was a cleaner, I would actually wipe down the cans when putting them into the fridge. And what I would do is I would always make sure that the label was on the front. That's what they taught me. So make sure that the label of the thing is at the front, so that when people look at the fridge, they can see all the labels and it looks really neat. And I was like, but why do you want me to do that? And I said, oh, well, branding. It looks great. Now, these small changes that you make, the little things that you learn along the way, will teach you a hell of a lot at the end. It will teach you about your own brand when you're creating things. So that's just a way of doing that. And then the last point I put on there was to use bullet points instead of creating paragraphs on your CV. So instead of creating that whole paragraph, most people have about 4 minutes to kind of flick through a CV or to kind of browse through or peruse through it. So, and the higher up in the job roles you get, the shorter that time is, because they have a hell of a lot more applications. So using bullet points is great. I've also seen people use bold characters for the key learnings that the takeaway from those jobs. So that was another thing that was pretty cool. And I just wanted to remind everybody on one thing as well, is that when it comes to content, when it comes to, when I say content, I mean a description of a job. I did this. Don't just focus on what you did, focus on what you learned from it, okay? Because it's transferable skills. Don't focus on what the job description is. Tell them why they should pick you because of what you learned. Okay, that's that saying there. All right, now, connecting with employers. This was the next step. So you've done your CV, you've managed to get all of that. You've got your CVs in front of you. Now you want to connect it with employers. What do you do? Cool. Find out where they would normally hang out. Job fairs, you're looking at online webinars, we're looking at events, anything that where an employer would be, HR, it gives you a chance to connect with them, these employers, and it gets you to see how they speak, how they value, what their values are, what they're all about. And as I said before, is that this gives you a chance to interview them before they interview you. And then you can make those relationship connections when it comes to the interview itself. You say, oh, why have you applied for this role? Well, the truth is, I actually stalked so-and-so before. And when they spoke at this event, I was really touched and I found the synergy between what I do and what they do. So that's why I do it. And this is gonna, the moment you say positive things, it clicks with them too. So we'll get to that step after this, which is the neurotransmitter side of it. The next one is call the desk. Just call the company. Geez, I have hired at least 30 people who've just walked in through the door and said, I want to speak to the manager because I just really want to see if you have any job positions available. I have actually created opportunities for people who have, just because I really loved what they were about. We didn't have any positions at the time, but I loved the energy and we found them positions. So that's another one. Just be brave, go out there, connect with people. Another thing is add value. Find a way to create a unique and memorable connection. For those of you guys who are creatives, make a short, show off your skills using the branding from that company. Send it over to them. Say, hey guys, this is what I created. I love what you're about. Here's something I just wanted to show off my skills. If you ever decide to connect with me, please let me know where I'm here. And so on and so forth. So don't just be another name. Be a memory. Okay? Interview them. Be curious. It's a two-way thing. I said that already. Cool. Oh, the cat is because it's curious, by the way, in case you guys are wondering, why the heck does this guy have a cat in his picture? All right. The next one is here. It's about human nature, okay? And I keep talking about this. There are 4 chemicals, EDSO, E-D-S-O. Endorphins and dopamine are things that I can create. I have control over, okay? So endorphins mask physical pain. What it means by this is I can have endorphins. I get an endorphin rush from asking questions, from going through my CVs, and I'm doing something that will help me, right? So whenever you're doing all of that, you get endorphins rush, okay? The more you're working and you're getting stuff done. Dopamine is the achievement one. When you have a checklist and each time you put a tick on it, that's a dopamine hit. You want to try and induce that as much as you can. Now, dopamine is the achievement one, okay? How can you trigger dopamine during an interview? That's what you want to think about. Is where, okay, so I know now that a checklist, a triggering checklist is how I'm going to be able to help somebody else, an interviewer. I can get them to have a dopamine hit by me saying all the right things. By me talking about the right things before they even ask the questions, they will get a dopamine hit and say, yeah, you know what, I've been thinking about this. And then I can say, I'm able to do this and I'm able to do that. And I know this is all you're asking for, but I'm able to deliver this as well. What's happening to them? They're getting a dopamine hit each time that happens. So what happens now is you are bridging that gap of success, and you're making it a lot more achievable. Now, the next one is serotonin, is pride and achievement. Now, this chemical, it's actually triggered by relatability. When you've done your research into a company, people feel proud when you have achieved something. You can go in and say, if I told you I went and I did my degree, you were like, okay, what, so what? But if I told you, hey, do you know what? I actually went out and I spent 3 weeks volunteering at a charity, and I was giving back my time to make sure that I did this. Now, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, that's really cool, you know? And if you think about it, the more of this relatability and this gratitude and respect that you have given and shown, the more serotonin is secreted by the interviewer. So now they say, oh, you know what? I can actually get this. This is actually a pretty cool person in front of me. Yeah, okay. Then the next chemical that comes out is the trust and feel good one, oxytocin. It's a love hormone. Now, this is what happens if you've done all of the top 3 right. At this stage, they've gone through the interview, and you know what? They actually can connect with you. You've ticked all the right boxes. You've gotten them, when they had their checklist, you've gotten them to take and say, yeah, okay, this person has done this. They've talked about this. They now start trusting you. Now, trust doesn't happen overnight, but it helps get you there. At least you're scratching the surface to say there's an opportunity for more of this to come out. And once you've done that, gotten to that oxytocin release, they relax. They're not just coming for an interview. They don't just have somebody in front of them. They have somebody that has helped them take them through a journey of emotions. And that's what you want to do. That's what sales is. That's what you're selling. You're now selling yourself because they see a potential working colleague. They see a potential employee, in you. So the way you could trigger those is by personal acts of kindness. You make that relatable. Talk about what you've done. Talk about words of appreciation. At the end of the conversation, thank them for their time, ask for feedback, give them feedback and say, oh, I really appreciated this. Now, I'm not saying go and kiss their asses, but I'm just saying be polite, okay? And that goes a very long way. Cool, let's see. Oh, yes, okay, so there isn't B2B anymore, or C2C. It's H to H. Just remember that. It's human to human. Now, we worked with huge brands, okay? And for us to get those huge brands, it wasn't the company that we were looking at. We were looking at the people. You just make a connection with one person. That person will introduce you to another. That's what it is. It's a human connection. So don't look at big brands and get thing. So I'd love to connect. Now is the questions part, I guess. I hope I'm on time. Yes, I think I am. And if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that is my LinkedIn profile. I'm the only Ash Sunassee on there, which is pretty cool. My full name is Ashwin, but I get called Ashwin when I'm in trouble. So that. The other thing is, if you want to connect on Instagram, there's my Instagram accounts. The Ash Sunassee one is my personal one. So I'm opening it up there just so you guys can see what I've got on there. And then there's a company website, which is Wealthfinity over there. And that's it from me. Thank you for having me. I guess it's opening it up to questions and anything else.
Thank you so much, Ash. It was, an amazing session, and I learned a lot of things since I'm not a fresher. Obviously, been working since last 7-8 years, but I got to learn a lot of things, and I'm definitely going to implement that in my CV now. I think it was a good session, and especially for all the Kickstarters who have just started with their careers, and this will really help him. Like you rightly said, a CV is the first step which will get you an interview, and after that, it's on you, obviously. But yeah, thank you so much, Ash, for this session and for your time. And now, yes, we'll open up for questions.
Don't be shy.
Ash, I would just like to add on to what you, this is more, again, like just add on that there's, a lot of people are not aware in terms of how to, approach companies. There's a lot of hesitancy and they just restrict themselves to, uploading their resumes on the portals and just wait and watch. And they lose on to a lot of time on the basis of that. They don't know the fundamental of actually refreshing their resumes to make it on top of the queue. Use the right keywords, which is actually very important in terms of the industry knowledge if they have. And along with that, the approach has to be really proactive in terms of if there is a job, they have to first research about the job, about the company, the decision makers who are actually, going to be taking the calls in terms of the decision making, and also reaching out to the right guy within that company. It's like first in, first out types. I mean, it's, the first person who reaches, the probability of this person winning that job increases. I guess, that's where, there's a lot of people who are lacking, is to understand where the approach is, how, the approach is going to be in terms of getting the right job at the right time. They just sit tight after uploading the resume, which makes no sense at all in such a competitive environment. I mean, you would want to put some, light on it. I'll be glad to understand your viewpoint here.
I totally agree. And just another thing that I'd recommend doing as well is find, when a job goes out through a portal on a, on a website or whatever, wherever you see it, that job has gone out and they've done their tick box, right? If you are helping the interviewer or the person who's in charge of recruitment by connecting with them, it's so easy to get an HR's email address. And if it's a large company, find out who the HR is. If it's a smaller company, find out who the hiring manager is. Right. And send them an email, because you can easily get an email address of a company. LinkedIn is great. I don't know if you guys have used LinkedIn, but go onto LinkedIn, search for the company name, and then type in the title that you're looking for. It pulls up the person, and you can even connect with that person. Once you're connected with that person, you become a first-degree connection. Once you've done that, you will have their email address, and you can send them a message. Or you can even send them a message on LinkedIn, or you can even send a profile of your CV and bump it up and say, hey, thanks so much for connecting. I just wanted to let you know that this is what my skill set is. And if you're still hiring, let me know. And I'd love, I've attached my CV below for you. So that's something. And this applies for business as well, by the way. It's not just CVs, because when it comes to business, go in and show them that you have a solution, that they have. Remember, they have a problem. Tell them what solution you have. If somebody is coming to me and saying, hey, I've got a solution that, you have a pain point and I have a solution to that pain point, I would listen to that person, especially if you're being sincere. If you have the confidence to come and just do that, it shows creativity to connect. And I want to name drop to my team here, but Billy, Layal, and George are actually here. And what they do is they reach out. There you go, there's Billy. But what they do is, we've started working together for the last couple of weeks, but they take initiative to connecting with brands and companies. And all they do is, they think of, how can we connect with this person? I say, well, how would we do it? They just connect with that person, send them a message, and God, we've made so many amazing contacts from just those reaching out, whether it was Instagram and calls. And I mean, these guys have actually been going into shops and restaurants and just going in and talking to people, which is phenomenal. That's what I recommend doing. Is remember, you see a brand, it's not a brand. Go find a person. They're not scary.
I was actually. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Billy, go on.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Hello. I was just going to ask. You mentioned earlier in the talk that there's no such thing as a business to business, client to client, just human to human. And while I agree on a personal level, I think in my experience, it's been a lot more complicated than that. And I don't know if it's an issue with the companies, but I've done the thing where you go to a physical location, you ask to see someone because you're really passionate and you're really driven. And I have literally been laughed out of the building on several individual unrelated occasions, as well as had the threat of the police being called for me. And I don't think I'm a particularly threatening person. I think I'm pretty chill, really. But I guess my question is like, how do you tell when that is an appropriate thing to do when we live in a time where so much is handled by algorithms and bureaucracy? How do you get that human connection when the tide is very fully against you?
Okay, so there's a saying in sales: some will, some won't, so what, next. Okay, some will, some won't, so what, next. Anyway, so the purpose of this is dealing with rejection is so important. I've been rejected, I'm not joking, I've been rejected at least 40,000 times. But for those 40,000 times that I've been rejected, that's because I did sales. I did sales for a health club for the last for at least 10 years. But equally so, I've actually converted and I've signed up at least 100,000 people. So that's a huge number. So for the same amount of people, rejections that I got positives. Now, when it comes to target audience, right? So before you go out and attack a company, know who your target audience is. Now, anytime you want to present your case, and if you want to sell, you have to sell to somebody who wants to be sold. They have a pain point. If you don't, if you go in and start selling to somebody who doesn't have a pain point, like we mentioned before, they will reject you because you haven't highlighted that pain point that you are a solution to. So go in, again, identify first whether they are your target audience, whether you should be going in and speaking to them. Because if it's a corporation, and that's one, it's likely that they probably won't just listen to you off the street. There's probably the right channels to go through and get there. Secondly is the approach would probably have to be more structured. I'd probably say in a corporation style, I'd probably recommend booking an appointment or sending an email. And another thing that I do is doing corporate, like a bag drop, like a goodie bag, a gift drop with a name, and say, hey, I've just dropped this off for you. Here's my name. I'll be in touch later on. And then I do that twice. And so what happens is I've given them twice. I've increased their dopamine, their oxytocin, because they believe and trust in me now. So the third time when I ask, they feel like they owe me, right? So now they give me the time. So I give, and then I ask. So that's just another thought, but I don't know if I'm answering your question. Does that make sense?
No, I think I get where you're coming from. It's okay. No, pick your battles, essentially. Know when you're gonna. I was just gonna sort of adding on to what you say. I'll let someone else speak in just a second, but before I dominate everything, I basically did what you were describing for a unnamed storytelling app a couple of years ago. And they were looking for writers, and I'm just giving a bit of background this before I get on my main point. Long story short, I did an interview where I took a list of ideas I could potentially explore with their app that they were using, like individual stories they could take with. And at the end of the interview, they asked, "Can we keep that?" And rather foolishly, I said, yeah, sure, thinking I'd aced it and that I'd be called back in and stuff. They dropped all contacts from me from then on. And as far as I can tell, they haven't used any of the ideas from it, but it's there. They have ownership of it. And I don't like that. And I understand that's a very specific thing because it's a creative thing. And it's, it's IP, it's property, it's ideas rather than finished products. But is there like I guess an appropriate cutoff point for what is considered a gift and what is considered intellectual theft, if that makes sense?
This brings it back to the whole. It's a great question, by the way. So and I'm sorry that you went through that, but
makes good anecdote.
But I'd say that one of the things that has probably shown you is that from that interview or that initial interview process, when you interviewed them, you then realize that this is not a type of company that I necessarily want to be working with. So when it comes to the content that you create for a company, like I said, give value at the beginning. If they find the value in what you've created, then they will go through and do that. And that's how that would, I'd say pick your battles, know how much content you give away. Intellectual property is usually, if you create the content for them, to ask them if they have provided you with the assets, can you use that for your show reel or for your portfolio? Then it's fine. Then at least you don't lose out from that. So that's how you could win in that situation. And that could be something I could say going forward. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. You're welcome. Anyone else? Oh, come on, don't be shy, guys.
Hi. Yeah,
Ryan.
I was just wondering, when it comes to doing the whole handing in your application or trying to get noticed by a company, what's more important to get information across? Would it be through the CV, or when companies ask for a cover letter? Like, when's like the best, like what's the best method basically in terms of getting across, like, hey, I am perfect for the role that you're looking for applicants for?
That's a great question, Ryan. I think, you know, it's one of those situations where your cover letter is what gives the cover letter gives an insight into what the CV is going to be about. The CV content is what then gives insight into who the person is, and that person interview is what is going to get you the job. And I know I've said this before, and I'm going to come back to the answer specifically. So what I'd say is there is no magic formula. They work in synergy with each other. The best way is to make that lasting impression, that first impression, that if you can possibly do that. So I'd recommend trying to come up with a creative approach on how you can present your CV, come up with the content, make sure that your why actually is in line with their why, with the company's mission and values. I'd also recommend making sure that you highlight the pain point that they have, and you show how you are able to provide them with a solution to that issue. I'm happy to go through specific, points, I guess, offline. And yeah, please just drop me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to go through that as well.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll be sure to do that then.
All right.
Do we have any other questions, guys?
I got a question. Have you found it useful in the past for making connections people to point to things you've done previously, like successes you've had with other clients or other employers and things? I'm looking at both from someone trying to be employed and business to business perspective here. Do you think that factors in much to their decision making?
So are we talking about testimonials and referrals?
I guess, yeah, testimonials and referrals, or like a portfolio, if it's possible, to point to things you've done in the past for other people as well.
Callum, can I just ask if you're a creative?
I am not really a creative, developer kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Amazing. So just to kind of sorry, thank you for clarifying. So what I'd recommend doing is, in this case, there are two things. Earlier today, actually, as I was going through CVs, I had one lady who had multiple internships and jobs that she had done. And at the bottom of each of those, she had a little quote from each person that she had worked with. So she had those little testimonials, and she referenced them, and she put the contact details at the bottom. That was a really cool way to do it, because instantly we have a person and a referral. So that was one. The second one is if you have assets, right? And if you have assets to a G drive, and this is content that is, not information sensitive, include that as a link in your cover letter to say, hey guys, this is why I'm applying for. I'd love for you to have a look at this. Here's a link to my portfolio, and then you show off your portfolio. Now, one thing I will say is that if you're using links like that, most companies would actually have a filter, so they won't be able to go and click on that. So if there's a way of creatively embedding it into a presentation or somehow, that would be really handy. And if they do ask you for it, then ask them how they would like to see that information from you. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Does that answer?
Yeah, cool. That answers it. Yeah.
Amazing.
We have a question in the chat box. I'll just read out for you, Ash. So Stani is asking this question. So his question is that what if you don't hear back from an employer where you have applied to? Is it wise to send a follow-up mail? If, then what should be the ideal duration between applying and sending the follow-up mail?
That's a great question. I'd say there are a couple of things that I'd recommend here. Is a lot of employers are very time poor, so they would like to have a good interview process, but a lot of them have really terrible ones. So they, as soon as they get a candidate, they just immediately drop everything and go to training that candidate, and they forget about even responding to everyone else. So, I mean, in the ideal world, what I like doing as well, with Chippy, who's also here, is we would contact them and give feedback straight away, if they're not successful. So that's the ideal scenario. But in case they don't, then what I'd recommend doing is, if it was an application that you did and it was just a submission of a CV, you haven't made any connections, so they might choose to ignore you. There's no, they don't have to do that. Now, legally, I believe that in the UK, if somebody has received a CV, they have to respond to you. So that is a legal requirement. So that's why we always respond to anyone who has. If they haven't contacted you, you can call them or send them an email. Do it as early as possible, and ask them. Again, these are people. They're not these huge organizations. They're people. So just ask them, when is the best time for me to follow up? When can I expect a call back from you? Understand expectations. It's all about managing those expectations. So if you haven't heard from a company, usually 72 hours from the last conversation that you have, it's good enough to go back and say, hey, I just wanted to find out, have I been successful? But instead of saying no to me, just say, I'd love to get feedback on and the purpose of this is because I would like to learn from what I did wrong so that I can improve on my next one. And that actually has turned around quite a lot of interviews as well, personally speaking. So that's what I'd recommend there.
Thank you, Ash.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks.
That was even my question, that what would be the ideal time to follow up. But yeah, I think the way you have answered it, it's really good, because sometimes we tend to miss out on all those things. If you're following up, you can just put it in a way wherein, they have to respond. You are, pestering them to basically respond to you.
Exactly. Yeah. And remember, take the blame away from them so they don't have to defend themselves. You take the responsibility, like, oh, you know what, I might have screwed up, but I'd love to improve. So how can I improve? So you now take the blame away from them from not responding to you, and you turn that into a positive. So always turn things into a positive.
Great. I think we'll just take one last question if anybody has.
Cool. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I guess per my understanding, there should not be much of a gap when you're sending an application. You can, follow up with the call. If you've not been able to establish a contact, there's always a possibility that if you give too much of gap, you lose that candidacy as well. So you don't want to give that much of a gap wherein other applications are being considered. So, again, the proactivity plays a very important role for us to, be on top of, the application process, so that there's no delay, or even if you reject it, at least within 28 to 48 hours that, okay, you've been considered or not. So 4 days or 5 days for a bigger organization may work, but for a smaller organization, I don't see that as a game. That's just my viewpoint.
I agree. 72 hours, small organization, just call them. Now, just remember is that you're helping them with the interview process by giving them a call. Like, hey guys, just want to let you know, I've submitted a CV and I'd love for you to get, I'd love to get your feedback on it. My email address is on there, so please just feedback and let me know if I'll be successful. You're helping them along the process.
Just one last question, Ash, from my side. I mean, do you suggest that we should go for, many follow-ups? A call is different, because obviously you'll get either a yes or a no. But if you are sending it via email or via LinkedIn and you're still not getting response, should we go again? Doesn't it look desperate, or I don't know?
Just two. I'd say two. So do one 72 hours, the next one 72 hours later. After that, just leave them. And then just use the other phrase that I said. Some will, some won't. So what? Next. Then just find the next job.
Thank you so much, Ash. Thank you for this amazing session. And I think we'll just stop questions. If you guys have any questions later on, you can, reach out to Ash, or you can reach out to me as well at manisha@arjunglobal.com. And we will definitely, address all your queries and any questions you have. Again, on behalf of Arjun Global and on behalf of everyone else, I would really want to, thank you, Ash, for taking out time for all of us and, giving us this insightful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Ash, just
Thank you, everyone.
question, or maybe like a request. Can I use this line with other guys in my vicinity as well? Because this sounds very impressive, in terms of using that. So you've not patented it, right? I can use it, and
I use this in my training sessions, but you can use them. It's honestly fine.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out time and joining this session. Thank you. Thanks, Ash.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Cheers.